Greetings from the Cosmos Foundation. This is Nahar Khan, and it gives me much pleasure to welcome you all to our webinar under our Ambassador Lecture Series on Bangladesh-Indonesia relations, Prognosis for the Future. Today's discussion on relations between Bangladesh and Indonesia, two nations who share a deep and tested history of friendship, will be chaired by Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed Choudhury, President of Cosmos Foundation, followed by the keynote by His Excellency Heru Sabolo, Ambassador of Indonesia to Bangladesh. Subsequently, we will be joined by three distinguished discussants today: Dr. Lela Furyasmin, Professor, Department of International Relations at Dhaka University; Ambassador Tariq Karim, Honorary Advisor Emeritus of Cosmos Foundation; and Mr. Shayan Khan, Executive Director of Dhaka Courier. Indonesia has remained one of Bangladesh's most trusted friends, with 50 years of diplomatic ties. Official diplomatic relations were established in 1972 after Indonesia became one of the first Muslim countries to recognize Bangladesh as a sovereign state. The two countries have a history of cooperation at several levels in the United Nations and various multilateral organizations, particularly in international peacekeeping, the Group of D8 countries, the Non-Aligned Movement, the World Trade Organization, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The two nations, which belong to the Indian Ocean Rim Association, are becoming important trade partners. Both countries have enjoyed healthy economic growth in recent years, thanks to economic reforms, stimulus packages, and investments in infrastructure projects. As the largest economy of Southeast Asia and the second largest economy in South Asia, respectively, Indonesia and Bangladesh now enjoy natural opportunities to expand their economic engagement with each other. Bangladesh is pursuing the next level of growth as it emerges out of the group of LDC nations through diversification of products in its export basket. And Indonesia, as the world's 16th largest economy, should be a natural destination for a large portion of that. During Indonesian President Joko Widodo's visit to Bangladesh in 2018, the two countries took up 5 wide-ranging agreements. They covered foreign office consultations, cooperation to combat illegal fishing, cooperation in the energy and power sectors, and launching negotiations to sign a PTA. President Widodo also took the time during that trip to visit the Rohingya refugee camps in the south of the country. We hope Indonesia can use its important standing with the group of ASEAN nations to pressure Myanmar into repatriating the Rohingya people at the earliest in a safe and voluntary manner. The signing of the PTA, which still remains under negotiation, would be an effective tool for further strengthening the trade and economic relations between the two countries. I am pleased to note that as recently as November 2021, the foreign ministers of the two countries reiterated their commitment to an early conclusion of the negotiations to sign a PTA that is both inclusive and mutually beneficial. That meeting was held on the sidelines of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, an important multilateral forum where the two countries cooperate extensively. Previously in 2019, the Indonesia-Bangladesh Business and Investment Forum was held in Dhaka, where the businessmen in attendance from both countries pledged a target to increase bilateral trade to $10 billion in 2029. The pandemic came to slow down our progress towards that target, but as two countries that have weathered the storm fairly well, hopefully this progress can resume very soon if it hasn't already. With that, I shall hand it over to our chair, Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed Choudhury, President of Cosmos Foundation and our former Foreign Affairs Advisor, and very much look forward to hearing from the highly distinguished panel we have gathered here today to enlighten us on the way forward. Dr. Choudhury.
Thank you so much, Nahar. For me, of course, it's an enormous delight to be able to chair this webinar. With regard to Bangladesh's relations with such a distinguished friend of our country, Indonesia. And I'm pleased to see that country, Indonesia, being represented in Bangladesh by Ambassador Subolo, whom I had the privilege to meet recently and thereafter correspond. And these have been very stimulating exchanges. Now, he's of course, as you have said, Nahar is the keynote speaker today. I should also wish to recognize and commend this extremely high quality level of discussants that we have. And I would look forward to what is bound to be stimulating exchange of ideas. Now, from my perch in Singapore, I've been able to watch Indonesia from a fairly close proximity. It is the largest Muslim majority nation and a key member of the Developing Eight or D8 grouping, as it is called. It's also currently chairing the G20, and office it is conducting with skill and dexterity. I've long admired Indonesia's free and active foreign policy and its leadership role in the ASEAN as Asia Pacific's largest economy. Indonesia acts in this region in consonance with its size and location, but avoiding involvement in big power conflicts or rivalries. This is worthy of emulation for countries of comparable milieu. Our ties, the ties between Bengali people and Indonesians, go deep into history to the 9th century, when the Sri Vijaya Empire in the archipelago had links with then Buddhist Bengal. With the spread of Islam in both regions, maritime links between medieval Bengal Sultanate and the kingdoms of the Nusantara continued. There are strong trading and cultural connections. Small wonder, therefore, that bilateral relations got off to such a splendid start immediately after Bangladesh's independence. This month, we celebrate 50 years of our bilateral relations and rejoice in our friendship and collaboration across a wide spectrum such as commerce, politics, defense, and culture. I should be remiss were I also not to mention Indonesia's strong support to the Rohingya issue, both bilaterally and in various multilateral fora. For me, it has been a learning experience to have worked with stellar and legendary Indonesian diplomats like Foreign Minister Ali Alatas and also my friend Hassan Wirajuda. We were together in Geneva and then thereafter as well for years. And these have, these kind of interactions even at individual levels between our diplomats and their Indonesian counterparts have sort of fed into the process of the strengthening of the bilateral relations, bilateral ties between our two countries. But I would leave the more detailed description of the relationship to our keynote speaker and our distinguished panelists. And with these few words, I should like to invite Ambassador Subolo to the microphone. Ambassador, you have the next 30 minutes or so, and thereafter I will invite the discussants in the order that they have been named in the program. So, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iftikhar Ahmad Qauduri. Very good morning to see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Allow me also to greet Ms. Nahar Khan, which already provide a welcoming remark a little bit on this very timely discussion. And also our distinguished panelists, Ambassador Tariq Karim, Professor Lelufal Yasmin, and Mr. Sayan Khan. Excellency, colleagues and friends, first of all, I'd like to thank profoundly to Cosmos Foundation for inviting me to share some points on Indonesia-Bangladesh relation. And topic today is very timely, Bangladesh-Indonesia prognosis for the future. But before that, I learned that this situation in which climate change uncertainty allow me also to send warm sympathy my fellow Bangladeshi, especially who lives in Sylhet area, affected by recent flood and rain in very disastrous time. Our sincere sympathy also goes to all businesses and households that lost property or suffered destruction. I pray to Almighty to impart those who are affected with all strength to come out of this tough time. This year is also a very special year for Bangladesh. On the 50th anniversary of the independence of People's Republic of Bangladesh, as well as the centennial birth anniversary of the father of nation, Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. On behalf of the Indonesian people in Bangladesh and the Embassy of Indonesia, would like to offer its heartfelt congratulations on this remarkable celebration. Let me begin this part from the historical background. Our recorded history of more than 1,000 years tells us that our people have always maintained contact with each other. Contact between the Bay of Bengal region and Indonesian archipelago dates back to centuries ago. Indonesia and Bangladesh were connected by the maritime Silk Road of the Indian Ocean Trade Network, where the passage of goods and knowledge was exchanged. Since the early 4th century, Indonesia has accepted Hinduism and later Buddhism from the Indian subcontinent. In the 9th century of Sriwijaya Empire, established contact through religious and educational link with Buddhist schools, monasteries, and universities in ancient India and Bangladesh, such as in Nalanda and in Somapura. We learned that after the separation of Bangladesh from Pakistan, Indonesia, together with other countries, immediately recognized Bangladesh's sovereignty in 1971. Furthermore, after the independence in 1971, Bangladesh immediately established diplomatic relations with Indonesia, and the embassy began functioning since May 1972. Indonesia was one of the first countries that gave official recognition of Bangladesh independence, which was in 1972. Bilateral relationship between our two great nations, beyond its 50 years dynamic and solid modern day connectivity, signified by our great assets. Indonesia and Bangladesh have great assets in forging close and friendly bilateral relations. Let's take a look on the population-wise. Indonesia is the 4th biggest population in the world after India, China, and the US, while Bangladesh is the position as the number 8 biggest population in the world. Both countries share a large number of Muslim populations in the world, in which Indonesia contributes 12.6% of total Muslims, while Bangladesh contributes 9.2% of total Muslims in the world. Take a look at an international contact, which already also been touched by Ambassadors Koduri. Indonesia and Bangladesh are fellow members and share many similar interests in the United Nations, ASEAN African Conference, Non-Aligned Movement, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Developing Aid, Group of 77, Indian Ocean Rim Initiative, IORA, the ASEAN Regional Forum, and also the member of Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, as well. Our UN peacekeeping operations are in many parts in the world. Indonesia position number 7 with 3,000 Indonesian peacekeepers, while Bangladesh is position number 1 in the world with total 6,500 Bangladeshi peacekeepers. We support also effort by Bangladesh in Rohingya issues through regional as well as bilateral matters. We have shared common viewpoint in various regional and in multilateral fora. Let's also take a look in the cultural context. Indonesia and Bangladesh also share historical, religious, and language similarities. Both Indonesia and Bangladesh language are rooted from Sanskrit. Hence, several words and vocabulary in Bahasa Indonesia or in Indonesian language has similar meaning with some word in Bengali. For example, dunia is dunia, matahari or surya, bahasa, bahasa, etc. Surely, this is a solid asset of bilateral relations. However, we need a glue to bind us stronger. My view is people-to-people contact must be strengthened by enhancing more cooperation, for example, in education, including capacity building sectors, cultural connection, health, etc. To do so, the strengthening of Indonesia diaspora in Bangladesh and Bengali diaspora in Indonesia and all over the world, indeed a mission to do. So we have to elevate to a new perspective and modern chapter on this. How about the status of G2G at play? Strengthening G2G partnership is very important. In April last year, Indonesia and Bangladesh concluded their first Foreign Office consultation covering a wide range of issues of cooperation, such as defense, trade and economy, security, and social culture. Our second FOC meeting, which Indonesia would be the host this year, will solidify the achievement as well as addressing common concern, and also to seize the momentum beyond 50 years anniversary. So far, Bangladesh and Indonesia have continuously collaborated in the defense and military field in the form of student exchanges in Defense Services Command and Staff College, and also at the National Defense College. Besides being active in student exchange cooperation, Indonesia and Bangladesh has also carried out activities in the form of visit by military officials, defense, as well as cooperation in counterterrorism. MOU on this field is also underway to complete very soon. Indonesia and Bangladesh bilateral trade is also fast and robust. Recent effort to boost cooperation in trade between the two countries shows significant progress in various sectors. The volume of bilateral trade jumped sharply, up to 72% from US dollar 1.76 billion in 2020 to 3.03 billion in 2021. These achievements obviously shows that bilateral trade activities remain strong amid the pandemic. So it is very interesting to learn that our trade not only focus on traditional commodities, but also covers broad and strategic product too. Traditionally, our major export to Bangladesh are palm oil and its derivative products, coal, chemical, wood pulp, yarn, food, artificial staple, copra, spices, etc. On the other hand, Bangladesh's major export to Indonesia are mostly ready-made garments, knit, jute yarn, packing bag, etc. But now, our strategic industry product already entered Bangladesh market. Indonesia's state-owned company, which produces train wagon, has contributed to modernize the land transportation in Bangladesh since 2006, and also ready to embark more with better and modern train wagon for long, medium, as well as light trains. Furthermore, from 2019 to 2021, also one of Indonesia bus assembling company has exported 4 luxury buses and 10 double-decker buses to Bangladesh. Along with that, our aircraft industry has also liked to participate in strengthening connectivity between regions, as well as for military purposes in Bangladesh. In addition, Bangladesh Army in the past has also used products from the Indonesian defense industry. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, Bangladesh is also a potential market for Indonesia's strategic and leading industry. With stable economic growth and a favorable investment climate in Bangladesh, the prospect of trade and investment are open wider. With a combined Indonesia-Bangladesh market of more than 400 million consumers, there are still ample of opportunities in economic sectors to explore and to expand the bilateral trade that currently exceeds $3 billion. Investment in energy sector in Bangladesh is also promising. Currently, progress is being pursued by Indonesian state-owned company PT Pertamina and its Bangladesh counterpart and other parties to build and integrate power generating plant in Bangladesh. It is also the great interest that PT Pertamina is looking closely in other areas, such as prospective oil exploration, as well as power distribution in this country. A number of MOUs are being pursued. New or extension MOU, including, among others, MOU on energy that was expired in the end of 2020, is now being pursued to extend. We noted that boasting over 90 million internet users, according to Internet World Stat 2019, and the 5th largest internet users population in the Asia Pacific, and over 180 million mobile subscribers, and a robust national digital identity system, Bangladesh boasts a successful digital ecosystem and can improve access to global market. This will surely expand digital trade that enable Digital Bangladesh 2.0 to succeed. Parallel to this, Indonesia's industry can support this development to transform Bangladesh-Indonesia digital trade into a new height. Currently, both countries are working to finalize the Indonesia-Bangladesh Preferential Trade Agreement, or IBPTA, to cover more products and for facilitating more trade interaction between two countries. The completion of IBPTA will give significant impact to increase bilateral trade transactions. So let us discuss a little bit on how we should move forward. Bangladesh and Indonesia need to be prosper together. We have already embarked in many different regional and international fora: IORA, D8, ARF, OIC, and UN. As such, Bangladesh and Indonesia essentially need to see themselves as a comprehensive friends and partners. This friendship and partnership become more important amid dynamic and uncertainties stemming from Russia's war in Ukraine, post-pandemic recovery, and also seemingly inflation that cripple many countries, and also intolerant and radicalization issues, etc. Impact and consequences are felt any part of the world. Bangladesh and Indonesia are in better position in tackling those challenges together. In view of this, we wish to suggest a broader action plan that incorporating the best of our each national capacities to make up for the gap needed to strengthen the genuine partnership between two countries. The other dimension that I would like also to underline, that our people should be known each other better, so that the increasing continued people-to-people interaction or connection that will lead to a mutual understanding of both great potential countries between Bangladesh and Indonesia into a new height is very important. Strengthening engagement between our diaspora can be a key to achieve this goal through different kind of cultural, sport, and tourism activities. This may be one of the alternatives that we can pursue together. As we celebrate 50 years of Bangladesh-Indonesia bilateral relations this year, it provides us the opportunity to strengthen the economic partnership, deepen bilateral trade, and digital economic environment, invest in energy power generation and distribution, as well as enhance people-to-people connect to power our prosperous future together. I stop my remark today. Wish we all a very prospective bilateral relation and all the best for better relation of Indonesia and Bangladesh. Thank you. Donabat. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ambassador, for those very comprehensive remarks. You have covered the entire spectrum of our relationship. You have made some excellent suggestions with regard to the need, as you have said, to prosper together, both our countries to prosper together. You have suggested the action plan that would incorporate the best capacities of both countries, which would also strengthen the people-to-people connection, which are connections which are so important. And hopefully, a very important step in this 50th year of our bilateral relationship would be the preferential trading agreement, to which I'm sure further references will be made down the line in our discussions today. So what I'll do, Ambassador, is I'm going to give the discussants their 10 minutes henceforth, beginning with Professor Lalapur Yasmin. And thereafter, after Ambassador Tariq Karim and Mr. Shayan Khan have spoken, I will revert to you again, Ambassador, for any thoughts on their remarks or anything else that you might wish to add, after which Ms. Nahar Khan will close the discussions formally and Ms. Nahar Khan will give the concluding remarks. So it is now my pleasure to give the floor to Professor Yasmin. I shan't go into the bio details because these are given and provided in the program. So Professor Yasmin, the floor is yours. 10 minutes, madam.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Izzat Ahmed Chaudhry. Thank you, His Excellency Subalu. It was a pleasure meeting you in person a couple of times. This is a very interesting topic that we are going to discuss today, and I thank Cosmos Foundation for arranging this because Bangladesh, as it's celebrating its 50th anniversary, it needs to pay a minute sort of attention to each of the relationship and from where we can benefit, where we can advance. Bangladesh-Indonesia relations is one of those areas. So in today's sort of my deliberation, I have divided it in a couple of points. For example, what are the foreign policy goals and objectives of respective countries? What are the trends in current foreign policy relations? What are the commonalities and points of convergence between Indonesia and Bangladesh? And last but not the least, what are the areas that we can advance our bilateral relationship to the next level? So first, as His Excellency has very poignantly pointed out that there are a number of areas where Bangladesh and Indonesia's foreign policy objectives and goals converge. One of them would be that we both the nations pursue a pacific foreign policy based on 5 principles of coexistence. It is very much apparent to us that in today's world, the way strategic relations are unfolding, it is live and let live, and neither can survive while the other goes down. So this is something we have to remember first and foremost, is in the foreign policy principle of both the countries, that we live together, we prosper together, we connect together, we develop together. And this is based on a sort of an idea that was proposed back in late 1980s after the development of, after the idea of sustainable development. Scholars have started talking about sustainable co-development. That is, my development cannot sustain if my neighbor and a greater region, they do not develop together. So the fruits of development must be spread among neighbors, among beyond the neighborhood. And Indonesia is very much close to us, although geographically we may look being separated by Indian Ocean and some and its sub systems, but at the same time, how we live close together. So what are the trends in bilateral relations? We can see that how, as pointed out before, how Indonesia has taken up the issue of Rohingya, sort of with Myanmar on the Rohingya issue, and we can see that how Indonesia has taken a proactive role, bringing it to ASEAN, in the formulation of 5-point agreements. Although there are a number of challenges in this area, we understand, and therefore we know that this issue might take a little time to resolve fully, but we applaud and we encourage Indonesia's continuous proactive role in this issue. And here, if I can mention former Foreign Minister of Indonesia, Marty Natalegawa, he pointed out how it is time for Indonesia to step up and take a more proactive role in promoting Indonesia in the global affairs. So here we can see that Indonesia, using IORA Forum, how Indonesia is taking up this proactive role. And for Bangladesh, as we can see, Bangladesh being at the cusp of changes, and its global status is at the transformational level, how Bangladesh is also gradually should take up a proactive role in the matters that relate to its fundamental existence, its fundamental foreign policy goals and objectives. So what are the commonalities and points of convergence? As has been already been told, Bangladesh and Indonesia together are members of WTO, OIC, Developing Aid, IORA, NAM, ASEAN Regional Forum, G77. So Bangladesh and Indonesia together, they represent a good number of and participate in a good number of organizations that belong to Global South. So Bangladesh and Indonesia both can represent a Global Southern voice, a voice where Bangladesh is already being termed as emerging middle power. Indonesia is already there as a middle power. How we can work together in this respective areas to promote our foreign policy goals and objectives. Then we can see the Indo-Pacific region. Indonesia is a key player in Indo-Pacific region, and Indonesia plays a role of balancer in this region. Indonesia plays a neutral role in China and American confrontation, rivalry, cooperation, however we call it. So in the Indo-Pacific region, how Indonesia plays a neutral role. Bangladesh, as a gatekeeper in the Bay of Bengal region, also plays such a role in this region. Then also we can see that how both Bangladesh and Indonesia act as strong voice at different multilateral forums. So here we can find a number of points of convergence that act between Bangladesh and Indonesia. In terms of bilateral, direct bilateral relations, we know that Bangladesh and Indonesia are set to sign a preferential trade agreement, preferably by 2022. And here we can see a number of products where Indonesia exports to Bangladesh and Bangladesh exports to Indonesia. For example, animal and vegetable byproducts. Then there are mineral products and textile. And from Bangladesh, there goes textile, foodstuffs, chemical products, and Bangladesh is eyeing for the emerging pharmaceutical products exporting market in Indonesia, as Bangladesh's strength in pharmaceutical area is growing day by day. Bangladesh, as His Excellency excellency must be knowing, is the second largest online labor producer worldwide. So Bangladesh has a tremendous strength that Indonesia can harness and Indonesia can invest. And in fact, today morning, I was looking at one article published in March 2022 in the newspaper called Indonesia Investment. Although we do not have direct access to all the throughout the article, it is a paid subscription program. But as far as I could read, I can see how Indonesia is gearing up and locating Bangladesh as a sustainable, country where Indonesian investment can be trusted with. So that is another strength area that Bangladesh is developing. And we can see that another area, interesting area where Bangladesh and Indonesia are working together is the area of defense cooperation, as His Excellency has mentioned, not only at the area of UN peacekeeping operations, where respectively Bangladesh is now the top troops contributing countries and Indonesia is 7th. So there are a number of cooperation in that areas. So this cooperation, as we can see, that this cooperation can increase, and also not only in terms of even peacekeeping operations, where defense, purchasing of defense products that can help Bangladesh, that we can purchase from Indonesia, that we can train our armed forces with, but also there is also a capacity building where Indonesia and Bangladesh can work together. Bangladesh has top ranking, world-class training center, BIPSOT, where Indonesia can take advantage of, as His Excellency already has mentioned. Indonesian members of armed forces come to NTC and Staff College, and I have had the opportunity of interacting with them by virtue of being a lecturer over there. So not only there are also existing training programs between air forces of Indonesia and Bangladesh, and if I may pronounce it correctly, Indonesia and Bangladesh are Bangladesh purchases Alutsista, which is composed of advanced weapon system, for example, patrol ships, aircraft for armed combat and transport that Bangladesh is purchasing from Indonesia. So in that area, there is a cooperation. Not only that, also in terms of Bangladesh and Indonesian Air Forces cooperation, Bangladesh is participating in a Komodo exercise with Indonesia from 2014. So there is a strong defense cooperation between the two countries. And that is where we can see that Bangladesh and Indonesia can develop their defense relationship. The defense relationship between Bangladesh and Indonesia is not yet gone to a strategic level, but talks are there so that Bangladesh-India defense cooperation can transform to a strategic defense cooperation area. As there are a number of areas where Bangladesh and Indonesia can potentially contribute with each other, as we can, as His Excellency has mentioned, G2G level, but also there are potentials to cooperate in track 1.5 level of diplomacy and track 2 diplomacy, especially in the areas of public diplomacy, where there can be more cultural interaction, people-to-people contact, there can be exchange of students between the two countries, there can be signing of MOU between Indonesian and Bangladeshi universities, where there can be faculty exchange, there can be student exchange, there can be research exchange, there can be joint research in areas that can interest both Indonesia and Bangladesh. One other area that we need to understand, but that Bangladesh is a 26th member of ARF, and with cooperation with the ARF, Bangladesh and ARF have drawn up plans to tackle in the areas of disaster cooperation, how ARF and Bangladesh can work in this area. That has been going on since 2007 onward. Not only that, there are a couple of other areas where Bangladesh and Indonesia can fruitfully cooperate. For example, maritime search and rescue. This is an area because Indonesia is not directly in the Bay of Bengal community, but Indonesia can act as an observer of BIMSTEC. It can work as an observer in the Bay of Bengal community of cooperation. So maritime search and rescue is one area where Indonesia and Bangladesh can successfully successfully cooperate. For Bangladesh, this is an area that is yet evolving. Bangladesh do not have an effective maritime and search and rescue area. In the vicinity of Bangladesh, in the Indian Ocean region, only India and Singapore are the two countries which conduct maritime search and rescue. So this is an area where Bangladesh and Indonesia can work together. Then there is maritime data cable security and cyber security area. This is another area which is very important for both Bangladesh and Indonesia, where we can work together. And of course, as we have spoken that given that Bangladesh and Indonesia are both working as emerging middle powers and middle power respectively. So this is the area we can work on in the areas of sustainable co-development area. And also, as Bangladesh is looking forward to diversify its export destination, that is another area Indonesia can be a destination for Bangladesh, as increasingly we can see non-cotton apparel items and technical textiles are areas that Bangladesh is expertising on, and Bangladesh is also promoting BGME is working with Indonesia. BGME is promoting Bangladesh's Bangladesh's stand as a one of the textile and apparel industries as a brand producer. So that is another area that can work. As His Excellency has pointed out, how trade between the two countries, it has increased from as we can see from 1995, the trade has till today there has been 11% annualized growth in Bangladesh Indonesia trade. So Bangladesh's dependence in many countries in terms of its trade destination that can be diversified by looking at Southeast Asian nations, especially to Indonesia. As His Excellency has mentioned that Indonesia was the first country with Muslim majority that recognized Bangladesh. That is something Bangladesh has always remembered, and Bangladesh has been very grateful about, because in 1972 onward, as Bangladesh suffered from projecting its identity, there Indonesia's involvement in promoting Bangladesh has worked in favor of Bangladesh's promotion of its identity properly to the international community. So we can see that a number of commonalities and point of convergence that exist between Bangladesh and Indonesia, how Bangladesh and Indonesia both are promoting themselves as a neutral country in terms of pursuing its foreign policy when a number of global crises is going on. And as we can see that a number of foreign policy analysts are talking about the onset of a second, or if I may put it, that 21st century global Cold War. Both Bangladesh and Indonesia have pledged so that they remain and provide a neutral area, because for Bangladesh and Indonesia, we can neither live without America nor can live without China. This is something we need to recognize because of our geographic connection, because of geographic contiguity, as well as for our economic development and sustainable development. And Bangladesh is soon set to become within as 26th largest trading nation in the world by the year 2040. In fact, before that. So here we find that the bilateral strengthening of bilateral relations will work in favor of both the countries. I finish now, and I if there are any questions, any areas, I'll contribute furthermore. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yasmin, for those, which I thought very well structured remarks, and broadly in three sets. You have firstly analyzed how the goals and objectives converged, I'd assume influenced by the commitment to the original Bandung principles, really. And secondly, you have traced the trends in foreign policy evolution for both countries, and also thirdly, identified the areas in which the bilateral relations can be addressed and how they can progress to the benefit of both countries. You've gone into good details, I thought, how the sort of activities under the ARF would also be expanded. So good, I think, and if there be any questions that are directly addressed at you by any of the other discussants, I'm sure you'll be in a position to respond. And it's with great pleasure now I would invite Ambassador Tariq Kareem to make his remarks. No need for any introductions. One of our most distinguished diplomats, Ambassador Kareem.
I will try and focus my own remarks to looking ahead. That's the second part of the subject matter. Because I think what exists today from where we came has been already dwelt upon in quite great details by both Ambassador Hiro Subolo and by Professor Lailufar Yasmin. I have myself wrestled with this dilemma, why Indonesia and Bangladesh remained close and yet estranged in a way. Indonesia, after all, is one of the 3 or 4 countries, I think Turkey and Malaysia and perhaps Afghanistan, where the 3 other, none of the Arabs had recognized us, who accorded formal recognition to us immediately we had achieved independence in our liberation war in December 1971. We established relations, diplomatic relations, only in 72. But I think the symbolic importance is that these 4 countries, of which Malaysia and Indonesia are right immediately next to us in our immediate Southeast Asian neighborhood, they were the first to come forward. Ambassador Subolo, you have correctly pointed out that we are the 4th and 8th largest populous countries in the world. We are the 1st and 4th largest Muslim populated countries in the world. That gives us an inherent strength and resilience that we have not realized for ourselves. And if we had worked harder at developing closer relationship with each other, I think the regional situation and geography would be very different. I have also, this is the 25th anniversary of the founding of BIMSTEC, and I had contributed an article at the request of the BIMSTEC Secretary General to looking ahead for BIMSTEC. And in a sense, BIMSTEC, the name is a misnomer, and I have always said so. BIMSTEC initially was only Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Thailand economic cooperation, from BISTEC to BIMSTEC. And then when Bhutan and Nepal joined it, I think the organizers found it a little challenging to add 2 more consonants to the acronym, but very ingenuously called it Bay of Bengal Multi-Sectoral Technical Economic Cooperation. If we call it Bay of Bengal Cooperation, then the configuration is incomplete, because the two very significant countries and economies and powers, middle powers in the Bay of Bengal, Malaysia and Indonesia, are out of it. And I have been actively advocating that we now need to relook at BIMSTEC as BIMSTEC Plus, and I would in fact say redefine the goals of BIMSTEC. We should actually come together to work towards establishing a Bay of Bengal economic cooperation configuration. For me, it is very natural that we should be looking at that, not only because of we have, in terms of the populations that we share, the size of the populations, the adherence to a common faith. The common faith we adhere to is also the faith which is one of moderation and inclusiveness. And in a world today where divisions are so very acrimonious between people adhering to different versions, we together can play a sort of calming role in diffusing or eliminating these divisions among us. Number two, if we look at this Bay of Bengal economic cooperation configuration that I am alluding to, we would just the 7 plus 3 or 4, because I see in this configuration not just the Bay of Bengal littorals, that's Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. I see the countries with immediate interest, landlocked countries like Bhutan and Nepal, the outlying ports which have been or can become entrepôts like Singapore and Maldives, and countries of immediate interest in the region like Vietnam, coming in and strengthening us. Together we would comprise, we already do without these countries of interest, a quarter of the current global population, nearly a quarter. If we were to join together with our GDPs being looked at together, we would be fourth grouping in the global scenario after the USA, China, and the European Union. And just imagine how the global relations, economic and otherwise, would be then reconfigured. Globalization so far has been a downward, has had a downward, it's been a top-down process that has been imposed on many of the countries without the resilience or the capacity. The COVID pandemic that came and struck us, and I believe now there are other pandemics in the offing, which have just happened in Europe, and probably we should be braced for that spreading elsewhere, because globalization has made geography and time, space and time more or less irrelevant. So we should be prepared for their spreading eastward to us. Basically, we need to consolidate what we have between ourselves. And I agree totally with Ambassador Subolu that looking forward, we need to intensify our cooperation with each other. We need to rediscover each other more. Why is it that since culturally we were so closely intertwined, we have been so distant proximities? If we work together in this, it is to our benefit. We will develop not only national resilience in each of the countries that are here, we will develop a regional resilience in facing the pressures that will be coming to us, because the world today, globally, we are in a state of flux. It's an inflection point, the future of which is still uncertain. And what happens elsewhere will affect us nationally, as well as where we are located. And so we will be better positioned to tackle those unseen yet undetermined threats that might emanate from there if we start collaborating and looking at this together, arrive at a point where we look at things together. I think our biggest point that we had together was that we were both the originators of the Bandung paradigm that emerged. And now that paradigm known as non-alignment is not anymore a fashionable term among in global politics, particularly because it is decried by several large powers. That should not deter us. I think as the world changes, we also need to redefine that. And I've been saying non-alignment exists, but many people are wary of touching it because it affects the relationship with the larger powers. But both Indonesia and Bangladesh have together taken an approach of balancing the relations between all these different large powers on our, around us. We are both between more than one rock and several hard places. And that is why we have both adopted strategies and actions that say we are with everyone, but we are not against anyone. It is what I would define, and I have publicly stated, a position of positive neutrality. Neutrality itself is also appears to be hands-off, but we will be engaged with everyone, but we will not take sides in disputes that we have with mutual friends. That is the only way we can survive. And if we can do it together, it will give out a very strong and clear message to everyone else. I mean, today, why is this focused attention on the Indo-Pacific, which was not there 10 years or 15 years ago? In a sense, I have recently said that we are placed at the epicenter of an oceanic planet. You know, imagine if Captain Kirk in his USS Enterprise comes from an outer galaxy looking for planets. He suddenly finds this planet, which is a blue planet, unlike all other planets that he has seen. It's 71% of this planet is oceanic, and all the oceans are somehow interconnected. And we happen to be situated right in the center of this oceanic world, both Indonesia and us. The Indian Ocean, which is known by Earth geographers as the Great Middle Bay, is the central ocean, flanked by the Pacific on one side, the Atlantic on the other side, and the Antarctic on its south. We are the smallest of the four oceans, but we are right at the epicenter of the four oceans. Number two, we in the Bay of Bengal are at the epicenter of the Indian Ocean. And in that sense, I have even said, I've said it somewhat outrageously, that in that sense, Bangladesh is at the epicenter of this oceanic world, as we are with Indonesia. So in a sense, we have a strategic value to the rest of the world far greater than what we imagine ourselves. And we can only take advantage of this if we work closely together, Indonesia and us. If we can only build on this further and consolidate this advantage that we have, because everyone's attention being devolved here for commercial reasons, for strategic reasons, for trying to jockey with each other in terms of projecting military power, we need to insulate ourselves from that jockey. We should be part of that process, but we need to make sure that it doesn't intrude into our own national and regional interests. And that is why I would reach out to you, Ambassador Subolo, that you as a member, as one of the defining members of ASEAN. ASEAN would not have happened without the leadership provided by your foreign minister, then foreign minister, Mr. Adam Malik. You were the largest entity in that grouping at that time. You were the most powerful militarily at that time among the 7 nations or 6 nations which came together. Yet, you had the wisdom that being the largest, you stepped back. You stepped back and allowed them to grow. You stepped back and allowed them to feel comfortable being with such a large neighbor next door. I think one of the reasons SAARC could not go forward is because the largest entity in the SAARC composition did not take the wisdom of this approach that you had. It's beginning to do so now, but I think SAARC today is not going to go anywhere because India and Pakistan, I don't think in my lifetime, I'm going to see some form of resolution. However, I think we should understand from the lessons we have learned for the non-success of SAARC to translating that to the regional relations that we in the eastern part of South Asia and Southeast Asia can put together. And in this, I think Indonesia and Bangladesh have a significant role to play, if only they will realize that they have such a role, if they will understand that they have this role to play. And I therefore totally endorse the point you made. We must have greater people-to-people contacts, not just in the terms of tourism. It has to be in terms of G2G exchanges and in public-private partnerships, developing between our two countries, synergizing between the respective strengths that each of us have. And once we start doing that, I think we will automatically discover that it is reconfiguring global relations in a manner that nobody has thought of yet. I think the last point I will say is that both of us, Bangladesh is no longer a least developed country. It's an emerging, developing partner. We are both graduating from what we were 20 years ago to what we should have been earlier, but we are gradually recognizing. Together, I think we are telling everyone that we were dependent on others, on the major powers, economic powers and military powers and powers in other sense. We had a state of dependency. We are moving away from that state of dependency. We are trying to redefine our relationship as a state of interdependency. And when we have been able to successfully proclaim that we are interdependent, not dependent on anyone, it's only then that I think we will be able to consolidate the resilience, internal and regional, that we are seeking. And it's only then that we will be able to have a configuration where others cannot force us to take positions that are against our own natural tendencies and inclinations. And I will end with those remarks here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Karim. Excellent. You made very telling points. You have focused on the prognosis component of the deliberations today, looking ahead. And in doing so, you have sought to redefine the existing mechanisms, regional mechanisms like BeamStack, and you'd rather have it as a Bay of Bengal economic cooperation configuration, which through its cooperation would be better able to develop the regional resilience, which you think our two countries working together would be capable of producing. For instance, you've argued that while there is non-existence in the ether, so to say, in the intellect, the problem is one is chary of making it a frame of reference for fear of giving umbrage to the key players. And yet, if we truly realize our potentials, we would be able to cooperate and reach the desired aspirations and thereby make a contribution to the evolution of thought processes to common good. Thank you so much. Now I have great pleasure in introducing Shayan Khan, Mr. Shayan Khan, and giving him the floor, an extremely bright editor of our executive editor of the Dhaka Courier, and he has the responsibility of every week sort of bringing all the articles as a sort of a garland to together as a garland to produce the message that the journal delivers to its reading public. Shayan, you have the floor. 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me thank the chair for his extra kind words just now. And otherwise, I would also like to thank Cosmos Director Khan for inviting me onto this program. My greetings to my fellow discussants, particularly His Excellency the Ambassador. His keynote has set the tone for the discussion already. And I'm actually not going to torture you with my face for the entire 10 minutes that I have. I will try and let you feast your eyes on something else. I would just like to reiterate something that Ambassador Karim has already touched upon, that it is actually very surprising that Indonesia and Bangladesh have not enjoyed greater engagement in their relationship over the last 50 years, given the fact that, almost all the ingredients you would think exist for us to be very natural allies, not just allies, really close friends. And you would imagine that there would be much more engagement at the government level than there has been. And but these things will improve, we hope, and particularly since 2018, which was when Indonesian President Joko Widodo visited Bangladesh in January of that year. I think there has been, there has been signs of some impetus into the relationship being being infused, but this was also disturbed by the COVID pandemic, which has robbed us of 2 good years of engagement. But I think, again, there have been signs recently that things will be getting back on track. And with that, I will just try to share my screen now and enter into this little thing that I have prepared for you, and I hope this works now. Indonesia and Bangladesh, since 2018, have shown signs of taking the job of really invigorating the relationship much more seriously. And this was, I think, a result of Joko Widodo's visit to Dhaka. Also, he visited the Rohingya camps as well, of course, along with his wife. And I think from the media's perspective, the reason I'm focusing on the 5 MOUs that were signed during that visit is the fact that from the media's perspective, we're actually trying to present the public's perception of the relationship with Indonesia. I think these summit level meetings are really the occasions where people get to actually get to see the relationship as to how it is developing or what we are really looking forward to doing in the future. So I'm going to try and focus on these 5 MOUs and see how much progress has been made or otherwise. So this is a picture of the two heads of government on the day of the summit. So the 5 MOUs, what were they? The very first one was on foreign office consultations. Now this was actually, I have very eminent diplomats who are part of this discussion. They would actually perhaps agree that just the mere fact that foreign office consultations had to be initiated between Bangladesh and Indonesia in 2018 is a surprise in itself. So that was the first MOU that was signed, that foreign office consultation would be started. The second was combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. So this is something that's very important for both countries. We have very large fishing populations. And large parts of the economy are dependent on fishing. The third is negotiations towards a preferential trade agreement. Now, when I'm going to discuss these things further, I'm going to try and bring in the trade aspect and economy together under this under the discussion for this MOU. The fourth, and this was not an MOU actually, this was more a letter of intent, I think they call it. This was for a power plant, but not a thermal power plant later learned. It could have been any power plant between Petrobangla and the Indonesian State Hydrocarbon Agency. And the fifth one, it was also along similar lines. This would be for LNG import for Bangladesh from Indonesia. So this was foreseeing the fact that Bangladesh's gas reserves have been really dwindling and will continue to do so in the days ahead. So I think we're preparing some foreign providers of gas substitutes. So those are the 5. So the first one, the foreign office consultation, what did they actually happen? What happened as part of that agreement? I can happily report actually that a bit more than 3 years later, in April 2021, the consultations did actually take place. It had to be done virtually because of the pandemic. And this was a photo of the discussions that was released by our foreign ministry. The foreign secretary was chairing from our end. The Indonesians also released a photo. They have it up on their Facebook page, the Indonesian embassy. Much ground was covered actually when you look through what was discussed on that day. I think there was much ground that had built up over the years, maybe. So the first one was really basic. It was this fast track the MOUs that had already been signed between the two heads of government. Similarly, there was this discussion to boost bilateral trade and get the signing of the PTA done. Dhaka presented some of its own desires for the relationship. It wanted duty-free access for IMG, for its IMG industry. And there was also a request for market access to Indonesia's halal trade and investment economy, basically. So this was just one of these things. There was much more. So in the more general sense, the communique, not the communique, but rather the release that was given to the media from our foreign ministry, they had said that the meeting discussed on promoting cooperation on combating corruption, counterterrorism, science and technology, export promotion, defense cooperation, that one of the previous discussions had expanded upon. There's climate change adaptation and mitigation as well, ethical migration, parliamentary exchanges, okay, and pursuing sustainable development goals. And there was one very concrete gain that actually came out of this consultation, or at least it was confirmed during the first Foreign Office consultation, which was that from then, general passport holders of both countries can now visit each other's countries for free. So there's the visa, I think, visa fee has been waived for each other's citizens. Now, the second one was, if you remember, tackling IUU fishing, which is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. It's a big problem for both countries. IUU damages ecosystems and economies. This is said by the FAO. This image is from them. It harms fish stocks and bycatch marine life, including active species. It is compromising fishing management. There's further distrust and also undermining responsible fishes. There's much more actually. So IUU includes all fishing that breaks fisheries laws and regulations or occurs outside their reach, it is said. Illegal fishing usually means without a license in an area where fishing is banned, with prohibited gear over a quota or for protected species. We know that even domestically, we have been trying very hard to protect our richer species, for which we impose pretty strictly observed bans these days. We're currently in the middle of one now, of a 60-day ban of fishing in the coastal areas. So that very often it's a vessel entering a nation's waters with no fishing license or fishing with a license, but catching more than is allowed. So they're evading regulations, basically, in order to increase their catch. Then there's the problem of unreported and underreported catches by licensed vessels looking to flout quotas or catch prohibited species. And this note, they talked about the hillshires, probably an example that we have in our domestic waters, but they're obviously in international waters, there are many more such species. Now, though most of the world's fish are caught in the national waters of coastal states, within 200 nautical miles of the shoreline, that is, a lot of unregulated fishing occurs beyond that on the high seas, which cover almost 45% of our planet. And I would think that the IUU agreement that was signed between Indonesia and Bangladesh was actually focusing on those areas. Catching regulation and enforcement in this vast area allow rampant IUU. And despite all that, given the nature of the problem, actually, there are no reliable figures on illegal and unreported or unregulated fishing. It is said that you see such a large range. The experts estimate that more than 1 in 5, so that's 22% landed fish, is caught illegally, with the figure rising as high as 1 in 4 of Africa. And every year, IUU is set to cost the world economy between $26 to $50 billion. Now, that's a big figure, but it also illustrates, I think, how very little we know, given the fact that it's such a large range they have to provide. And it was important for Indonesia and Bangladesh to enter into such an agreement because there had been this reputation developing whereby the Bay of Bengal coastal states were said to have largely failed to comply with their duty to cooperate with other states, managing and conserving fishery resources in the bay. And the obligation to cooperate is found in applicable international national instruments. And it's believed to be customary in international law, basically, that we would abide by these things. But the failure of the ring states to effectively engage with other states within the region in regulating marine fisheries have exacerbated the problem of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in the bay, according to the ISSF, which is the International Seafood Sustainability Foundation. I'm just going to go on to the next slide. think I've talked about this thing. Oh, so one of the things that during the FOC, the Foreign Secretary Masud bin Momen also suggested was that, and this was, though he said the two countries can expand, it was taken to be the fact that Bangladesh could actually do with some technical help from Indonesia in the form of expanding technical cooperation in not just extraction of marine resources, but also deep sea fishing and protection of coastal zones. Right. So this is not actually the third one; it's actually the fourth one of the MOUs. But bear with me here. This is the PT Termina BPW power plant, the agreement for the power plant. Now, I've seen through the records. Actually, this is still it has still not been ditched, but also there has not been much progress. It seems Bangladesh has been sort of not yet decided exactly if they want to go ahead with this. It would, given the fact that it's 1,400 megawatts, it would possibly be a coal-fired power plant, or what Indonesia has suggested, Pertamina, what they have suggested is building a gas power plant with a capacity of 1,400 megawatts that would consume about 150 to 200 million standard cubic feet per day of gas, which Pertamina is expected to. They were expected to supply actually, but now the equation has changed slightly. It's supposed to be in Anwara, and there was an initial date that it would start up in 2023, but it is not actually happening from the latest reports. So as there was this agreement that Bangladesh would be looking to import LNG from Indonesia as well, possibly. This would actually work out very nicely if Pertamina were to build this plant in a gas-fired capacity, which is why they suggested the thing that was said last, that that they would supply the LNG for it. Now, as a follow-up to the summit agreement, that was the one between Joko Widodo and our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, a letter of intent was also signed later that year in August, for Bangladesh to import as much as 17.5 million tons of LNG per year till 2025. So you can see why Pertamina would actually think that this would be a good idea to make it a gas-fired power plant. But it's also Bangladesh, as we know by now, Bangladesh has been one of the countries that has really been picking up its LNG imports in the last 2-3 years. In 2020, it ranked 15th globally among the nations that have increased their LNG imports the most. And just the year before that, they were 7th. And 2021 figures are not yet out, but I think you find that Bangladesh would rank very high there as well. But in the midst of all this, unfortunately, the imports have failed to materialize. There have been no imports. This may be due to Indonesia rethinking its own fuel mix. I think the ambassador would be the best place to say that. But there's been a lack of initiative from Bangladesh as well that we could see. They have been dragging their feet on the decision on the power plant, and also on where to buy energy from. And given the fact that these energy prices have really been soaring in recent months, so they have been like shopping around. So the last thing. So this is the MOU that I had left out earlier. The third one, which dealt with the PTA, but also I think it's a good chance to focus on trade a bit. The PTA, I think the ambassador has expounded on what exactly is going on with the PTA and what needs to happen, and I think there's really not much more to add there. But if you look at the present state of bilateral trade between Indonesia and Bangladesh, it is, I think we all agree anyway, that it is below potential. It has not yet touched $2 billion in any fiscal as yet. There was this upward curve in around 2018-19 where it had risen to 1.7 billion. But then the pandemic hit, and then it's been back again. I think the last year or the latest year, for which figures are available, give it to be 1.33 billion. We can slide back again. But as I said before, I think after the pandemic, we'll be picking up again. Apart from that, that has also slowed down this plan between Bangladeshi businessmen and Indonesian businessmen to actually increase that. They had some target between themselves when the IBCCI, which is the Chamber of Commerce for Indonesia and Bangladesh, when they had met, they had some target of increasing bilateral trade fivefold by 2029, which would make us touch close to the $10 billion mark. And if that could be done, that would be, I think, the most ideal thing to happen, basically. But right now, the trade is very minuscule. It's below $2 billion, and it is really dominated by Indonesia. And Bangladesh's exports to Indonesia are really negligible. It's for the entire trade figure, it's 1.69 billion in favor of Indonesia, and $75 million only that Bangladesh is earning from exporting to Indonesia. So you can see why during the Foreign Office consultations, the Foreign Secretary had been pushing for perhaps greater access to the RMG markets and other Indonesian markets as well. This is dominated by palm oil. I mean, all other goods here are really quite negligible. I mean, if you see there, 41% of the entire trade figure is taken up by palm oil. And this is, on the right, you see the Bangladeshi export, but the entire Bangladeshi export is such a negligible figure of $75 million that, I mean, it's really it's nothing to look at almost. But palm oil, I think, is very important because we have just heard the news, very good news, again, that Indonesia has lifted the ban that it imposed, the temporary ban that it imposed a few weeks ago on exports. So this will likely be going up even further in the days ahead. This is an interesting chart that shows the comparative advantage in trade. So given the fact that Indonesia has palm oil and other products that really just plug the list of products here. So in this comparison between trade with Indonesia and Bangladesh, what we have is on the horizontal axis, we have exports from Indonesia to Bangladesh, where you see that things like palm oil and their natural food extracts are way on the right, and things that they don't enjoy comparative advantage, the things that Bangladesh enjoy comparative advantage, these are on the top left. So what could be these products? These are based on 2020 figures. Bangladesh had a large net trade surplus with Indonesia in exports of textiles. This is very narrowly defined. Foodstuffs, they say, and chemical products. So that even though there was this comparative advantage that they enjoyed in these three items, it was very, very low. The numbers are very negligible. It's something like for chemical products is 1.7 million, foodstuffs is 2.3 million, and textiles is a bit higher at 67 million. That's pretty much the entire export figure of 75 million for Bangladesh. And Indonesia enjoys huge surpluses in just three products really. It's animal and vegetable byproducts, under which palm oil obviously is categorized. They have the $714 million surplus in that. Mineral products as well. We know that they're a very mineral-rich country, Indonesia, and there they enjoy a $423 million surplus. And even in other forms of textiles, which are not specified here, but even in there are forms of these are probably high-end textiles. They also have an advantage in that. So overall, I think Bangladesh would like some greater access, and also would like to enter the Indonesian market in a much more concerted way in the days ahead. And if this can be facilitated by the PTA, maybe once we get a PTA, we can graduate to an FTA. In that way, if the economy develops, I think the relationship will be in good hands, and that's the best way to probably ensure the health of the relationship in the future. With that, I'll just ease off for now and listen to the ambassador's plenary remarks, and if anything is required, I'll come back and clarify later.
Thank you, Shayan. That was very good. I mean, you focused on the 5 MOUs, the Foreign Office consultations, combating unregulated fishing, negotiating towards the PTA, not necessarily in this order, the thermal power plant, and LNG imports into Bangladesh. You've got into some details. You have reached the conclusion that the potentials in terms of our bilateral relations have not been tapped to the fullest, though you use this thesis as actually a hypothesis of the when you initiated your discussions. Very true. I mean, the kind of thing that you did just now, I am absolutely certain that the FOC would have, unless it does so already, should have a mechanism to do just what you did. I mean, sort of a monitoring mechanism under the broad umbrella of the FOC to sort of study the progress of the MOUs and also troubleshoot in the way that, you know, if you have run into problems in the Pertamina and the PWD project on the thermal power plant, what can be done to resolve the impediments that we confront, and sort of develop these ideas further, like develop the PTA into an FTA. In any case, as we evolve, we'll need further calibrations, and this mechanism under the broad umbrella of the FOC could perhaps do just that. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that intervention. Ambassador, now the ball is back in your court to react to some of the excellent suggestions that have emanated from the observations of our discussants, and thereafter we will wrap up. I mean, of course, there will be a discussion based on what you've said. If others need to react to your remarks now, they would have probably time to do so. Ambassador.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iftikhar, and also the distinguished panelists who already presented valuable input and views on how Indonesia and Bangladesh can move forward in a better and comprehensive relations. There are so many things that we can discuss on this matter, and let me start with the foreign policies issue first, in which Indonesia and Bangladesh share valuable views on different kind of regional and international forums. And as Indonesia's foreign policies itself, which is free and active, set out in 1945 constitutions, is always focused not only on the priority of national development and also the preserve internal and national as well as regional stability. But of course, this is also respecting the neighbors, the concerted effort of the neighbors in preserving the peaceful and resilient regions. And as you know, that Indonesia is also the capital city of ASEAN, and the founding fathers, one of the 5 founding fathers of ASEAN. So this is also the stepping stone of our foreign policies in tackling issues in the regions. And as you know, that the ASEAN, which Indo-Pacific or ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific, which already been discussed in different kind of fora, can also be considered as a reference on how the Indonesia, and especially in the region, stable region in ASEAN, would go forward, embracing neighbors in a peaceful and mutual recognition one. So this is something that we can highlight more in a constructive dialogue and discussion, including the Bay of Bengal that has been mentioned by Ambassador Tariq Karim, which is very relevant on today's discussion, in which how to connect both regions, each other, and mutual in a constructive way. I think the reinvigorating of Indonesia and Bangladesh partnership has also offers the positive and also constructive solution to various challenges, in which the ASEAN centrality is the one that we view the Indo-Pacific. So if panelists have read in recent publication and views that the importance of the ASEAN outlook of Indo-Pacific, which could help foster regional stability, is underway, and it is the something that we are very praised on the current development. Under the framework, Bangladesh can also, my view, to strengthen cooperation in the region through trade, for example, because AOIP, ASEAN Outlook of Indo-Pacific implementation, is mostly through the ASEAN +1 mechanism. So ASEAN and its partners has discussed extensively on the aspect of Indo-Pacific connectivity and how such connection can be synergized through the ASEAN Master Plan of ASEAN Connectivity, which include extended into the regional surrounding. The other issue that also been touched by Mr. Sayan Khan on the sea, and also Mr. Ambassador Tariq Karim, it is very timely. If we take up the Indo-Pacific concept, for example, it's more a seascape perspective. We are talking about the Indian Ocean. We are talking about the Oceania, and in some point can also be extended through Bay of Bengal, in which Indonesia in one hand and Bangladesh in the other hand can play a significant role. I also would like also to underline the biggest potential that need to be tapped between the two countries, Indonesia and Bangladesh. Sure that the Indonesia and Bangladesh has a huge potential, huge scale collaborations, and huge advantages that need to be explored more by both sides. Let's take a look at trade, for example. In trade, there is no loss, but loss and win, but win-win connection. I know that trade is below potential because in some way our transaction is not direct. The transaction of trade mostly is through the third countries. So if we calculate the amount and the value of the trade, sometimes we lost the value that left in the third countries because we need some direct connection. The connection of trade also through the third countries basis. Secondly, for example, we need to explore product potential of both countries. So that's, I invite the Bangladesh trade delegation to explore into the Indonesian market and also to collaborate with the Indonesian businessmen, entrepreneurs through different kind of fora. We have a very biggest, gathering of a trade and investment related, for example, in TTI, Trade Tourism Expo of Indonesia, which this year will be conducted on 19th to 23rd of October. So I think this is a platform that we also can explore together. The other views that I think we can elaborate together and discuss more is what we call the Powerhouse Concept. What is Powerhouse Concept? A Powerhouse Concept between Bangladesh and Indonesia is something that we can tap from each other potential, use it and digest it together, explore it together, and the outcome of the collaboration can be used for each markets or can be sent out to third country basis. Bangladesh is very strategic location in South Asia. It can be a central location for entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, to the South Asian market. And vice versa, ASEAN, especially Indonesia, can be your entry point to a more prospective Southeast Asian market. For example, in textile, I know that the Bangladesh has very huge and great ready-made garments. As well, Indonesia has also have, like for example, synthetic substance to be used for textile. So can collaborate, work together, creating a new textile industry, modern one, new product that can be used both in market in Indonesia and Bangladesh, but also can also be exported to third country basis using your very established connection with the world. For rare earth substance, like for example, different kind of material for high sophisticated industry, for example, for electric vehicles that we have, for example. It can be also tapped by Bangladesh think tank and Bangladesh sophisticated engineers can be digested into a factories or something which really can be used for the future industry, especially related with the electric and electrification of different kind of household and transportation. Food, for example, you have a different kind of fruit, different kind of agricultural product, then we can use together with the Indonesian industry and make a new different kind of product that we can sell in both market, Indonesia and Bangladesh, but also for ASEAN market, for example, that can benefit from the industry. For the textile or what we call it, the ready-made garments, combination of Punjabi and sari with the design batik, for example, for both market is very inviting and very prospective. Couple months ago, I met with your previous ambassador of Indonesia, which I happened to meet here in Dhaka. She is using a sari with the batiks embroideries from the Iwan Tirta design that really very nice. It can be used both in Bangladesh and also sell the product to Indonesia. This is very interesting combination using the Powerhouse Concept that really create something new for both market and for third market. Inviting Bangladesh private sector to invest in different kind of food product in Indonesia, including palm oil and other food, halal food and halal industry. This is also something that we can elaborate together. The other collaboration that we really strengthen our relation is also using soft diplomacy. As I mentioned, people-to-people connection is very important. And one of them we can use, for example, in sports. In sport activities that we can collaborate, inviting two other teams for Bangladesh and Indonesia. Last time I saw the disabled football team from Indonesia came here in Dhaka to play for the friendship competition. And maybe someday the cricket team of Bangladesh can be played in Indonesia with the Indonesian team, creating a friendship relations, as well as our badminton team from Indonesia can also be introduced more in a different kind of activities of badminton in Bangladesh, for example. It will create more connection between people. And as mentioned and presented by Mr. Sayan Khan, my job will be much easier here in Bangladesh. Why? Because our close relations between our leaders. President Jokowi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been met in different kind of occasion and also provide mutual respect and different collaboration in any forest. But my job is also easier because you're friendly people, hospitable people of Bangladesh. It also create some different opportunities in making our bilateral relation getting stronger and stronger. So I stop my comment and looking forward for more engagement and collaboration, because we are certainly two big nations with a lot of abundant of advantages and skills that can be explored and tapped for benefit of our good relation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I mean, this is not just summing up or anything like that, but you've also brought in new elements and given further, invigorated the discussions even further. Alas, however, we're running out of time a bit. So if there be any comments that you wish to make at this point in time, before I hand over the floor to Nahar, you could do it, but be very, very brief in what you say. So is there anyone who would like to say something as a sort of an absolute concluding 1 minute remark?
I think what I'd like to say is that, we took a long time to actually engage in institutionalized dialogue. We took much too long a time, considering the history from where we started a relationship. It was, I think, only the second in the series of interministerial consultations and the first in the series of higher level consultations. We need to really step that up. And I think, Ambassador Hero, you have a role to play. There is a good team in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who are receptive to this idea. I've been talking with them. We need to make sure that we meet often, we meet well prepared, and we are forward looking in what we are doing. And once this is set, this becomes a regular exercise, at least once a year, I would say twice a year if necessary. We will see, because relations do not grow amorphously. Relations have to grow with clear directions from the political leadership that, yes, we have a shared vision, this is where we need to go. And I think that we have identified today many areas where we think similarly. I think the challenge is drawing synergy from each other and making those come to meet together. So I'll just add that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Professor Yasmin, Dr. Yasmin, anything to say very quickly, 1 minute?
I would say that the kind of directions that we have received from His Excellency at the end of the discussion, this is something that we can work on, that what are the ways that Bangladesh can sort of bridge the gap that existed so far in bilateral relations. And as Ambassador Tariq Karim has pointed out, that it took quite some time for the relationship to grow. And there are a number of reasons behind that, of course, because Bangladesh was struggling with politics of recognition, and very rightly pointed out that it is the non-Arab countries which recognize Bangladesh at the beginning. So these are the issues and factors that we need to recognize, and we also need to recognize how, in the context of the Indo-Pacific, the Bay of Bengal, and in terms of strategic relations, in terms of defense cooperation, how Bangladesh and Indonesia can further their bilateral relations. And of course, the soft power diplomacy is something that cannot be neglected in today's world. So how we can connect with each other at the people-to-people level, societal level, we get to know each other. We already know, and His Excellency is aware, how Bali is one of the key destinations for Bangladeshi tourists. So how we can promote here Cox's Bazar, and how we can learn from each other in this kind of promotion. and also how we can promote each other in each other's media, how we see about how we view Bangladesh, how you view Bangladesh, you can promote that in Indonesian media, how we see Indonesia, how to promote that in Bangladeshi media. There can be concerted effort, there can be institutional effort in this regard that can be promoted by the embassy, and we can all work together in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shayan Khan. Shayan, are you now satisfied that our deliberations have taken us one step forward towards fulfillment of the fruition of our untapped exploitation of our relationship?
Absolutely, I believe that the better days are ahead, inevitable. And just to pick up on something that Professor Lalo picked up on, there is actually on the website, in the Indonesian Embassy's website, a mixture of Bahasa and Bangla that they're actually teaching, which is extremely interesting. That given that you said we promote ourselves in each other's media. Other than that, I think better days are ahead, as I said, and I love batik too. I would like to let the ambassador know. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I recognize Mr. Inayatullah Khan on the screen.
Yes.
Would he want to say something?
Yes.
Right? Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm in Singapore. I just arrived day before yesterday night, and but I really wanted to listen, and I have listened from beginning to the end, and I think it went beyond my expectation. And I think each and every discussant, and especially our keynote speaker, Ambassador, has spoken very well. I just wanted to add some of my personal observation that I think it has been already told, but what I would like to re-emphasize is that Bangladesh-Indonesia ties have been totally underexplored, underexploited, and I sincerely hope with the arrival of the new Indonesian ambassador, we can definitely look at those opportunities. And I think what each and every discussant has said, this will definitely come out, and it will be in the social media. But I think I feel very encouraged because Bangladesh and Indonesia, our ties are based on trust, which is a fundamental thing. Between building a relationship between two countries. So that trust we have, 50% of the problem or challenge is already there. But the rest 50% is the initiative that we need to take from each side. I think there could be more exchange of students. There could be more cooperation in green and kind of digital economies. Because I see so many new Indonesian the digital companies are coming up, and I watch them from Singapore, but Bangladesh can definitely take advantage of it. And I'm sure our relations will grow from strength to strength. And I will stop here. But once again, I thank everybody for their very, very valuable contribution. Ambassador Tariq Karim Bhai, Nilofer Yasmin, and Ambassador Hiru Subolo, my good friend, Shayan Khan, and I think Shayan, you should be present in each and every future ambassador lecture series. Ambassador Tariq Karim Bhai, you have given a wonderful angle, a very refreshing angle, this Indo-Pacific region and the Bay of Bengal, how Bangladesh can take advantage of our geographical location. And I think we have overlooked and we have underestimated our strength. It's time for us to assert and to act. And lastly, I would like to thank Nahar for making this happen. And now over to Nahar.
I just conclude this discussions, the deliberations. Excellent deliberations, of course. Thanks, everyone. Just to make the point that as we evolve our bilateral relations, and you have your work cut out, Ambassador Sabolo, but also bear in mind that there is evolution of another set of relationships in the region which are security focused. And Indonesia has shown the way how we can steer clear of involvement in those disputes, big power disputes, and develop our bilateral relations in a way that it benefits our nations and peoples. So with these, thank you everyone so much, and Nahar, over to you.
Thank you all for such an insightful and stimulating discussion on Bangladesh-Indonesia relations that surely merits more attention from policymakers. It is our hope that today's session can play its part to set the ball rolling in a forward direction in the coming days. On behalf of the Cosmos Foundation, I would like to express our profound appreciation to Ambassador Sabolo for his brilliant participation. Our distinguished panel of discussants, along with Mr. Inayatullah Khan, are also owed a special thanks for sharing their thoughts with us, which has been a key factor in the roundtable's success. Last but not least, I must thank our distinguished chair, Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed Chaudhry, for steering the discussion with skill and stewardship as always. In conclusion, may we join our hands in applauding this very successful event today. Wishing you all good health and all the best.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank
healthy.
you all.